Welcome back to True Crime Documentary YouTube channel. Nestled in the rolling hills of Middle America, the town of Maplewood was a quiet sanctuary where secrets rarely lingered beneath the surface. Known for its pristine streets and close-knit community, Maplewood was the kind of town where everyone knew each other's name and their business. Among the respected faces of the community was Ethan Harper, a real estate agent who had built a picture-perfect life with his wife Claire and their two young children. To outsiders, Ethan was the embodiment of integrity and commitment, a man who seemed to have it all. But beyond the facade of family bliss and suburban success, Ethan harbored a dark, unspoken secret that threatened to unravel everything. Ethan's marriage with Claire was the kind of love story people admired, a bond formed in their early 20s, built on companionship and shared dreams. Claire, a gentle and loyal woman, was not only his wife, but his confidant, the person who had supported him through countless struggles. Their relationship was one others looked up to. She was the reliable, supportive partner, and he, the ever-thoughtful husband who remembered anniversaries and brought home flowers just to see her smile. But as the years passed, the weight of expectation and the routine of domestic life left Ethan with a hollow feeling he couldn't shake. He'd found success, but it felt empty, each victory leaving him more disconnected from himself. That changed when Lucas entered his life. Lucas was Claire's younger brother, a free spirit who had returned to Maplewood after traveling for years, exploring places Ethan had only dreamed of. With his sharp wit and unbridled confidence, Lucas was the polar opposite of Ethan's controlled, cautious demeanor. While Ethan was steady, Lucas was impulsive. While Ethan abided by the rules, Lucas lived to break them. Their connection began innocently, shared laughs, late-night conversations over a beer, each drawn to the other's contrasting life perspective. Ethan found himself confiding in Lucas, seeking him out in moments of frustration, but the connection grew deeper than he could control. One evening, after a few too many drinks, the line between friendship and something more blurred, a lingering touch, a shared gaze that felt too long, and in that moment, Ethan felt something ignite within him that he hadn't felt in years. Lucas, unrestrained and open, seemed to sense this shift and responded with a knowing look that both terrified and exhilarated Ethan. The casual talks turned into whispered confessions, and soon Ethan found himself at Lucas's apartment under the cover of night. What started as friendship spiraled into a passionate affair, one that was as exhilarating as it was forbidden. The thrill of these secret encounters was like a drug to Ethan, each visit a heady mix of desire and danger. In those moments, he could let go of the careful life he'd built and lose himself in a world where he was no longer Ethan Harper, family man and community icon, but someone free and unrestrained. The weight of his daily life melted away with Lucas, who was always there to remind him of the person he once dreamed of being. Yet as the affair deepened, so did Ethan's guilt, which gnawed at him in quiet moments when he was alone. He could feel the weight of the secret pressing on him, suffocating him. The risk was immense. He knew that if Claire, or anyone else in Maplewood, ever discovered the truth, it would destroy everything. Meanwhile, Claire remained oblivious, her love for her husband unwavering. In her eyes, they were the perfect family, and she was pleased to see Ethan and Lucas getting along so well. She admired their bond, happy that her husband had grown close to her free-spirited brother. To her, this was proof of Ethan's commitment to family, and it made her love him all the more. Claire was a naturally intuitive person, but her trust in Ethan was unshakable, blinding her to the tension that lurked beneath the surface. Ethan had become an expert at hiding his emotions, keeping his double life concealed from her, but the pressure of the secret was growing unbearable. As the weeks passed, Ethan found himself drawn further into his obsession with Lucas. It was no longer just an affair, it had become something deeper, something Ethan was terrified to acknowledge. His thoughts became consumed with Lucas, and he found himself thinking about him at all hours, longing for the next stolen moment. The thrill of secrecy was intoxicating, yet so was the fear that his carefully constructed life could collapse with one wrong move. Lucas, on the other hand, was far less concerned about the consequences. For him, the affair was just another adventure, a thrill to add to his list of wild experiences. While he cared for Ethan, he saw their relationship as something temporary, a diversion. He couldn't understand the gravity of what it meant to Ethan, nor did he feel the same burden of responsibility. For Lucas, life was to be enjoyed, rules were to be bent, and consequences were a problem for the future. This cavalier attitude only served to heighten Ethan's obsession. He needed Lucas to need him as much as he needed Lucas, and the fact that he didn't drove him to madness. Tensions reached a breaking point during a family barbecue at Ethan and Claire's home. It was a warm summer evening, the kind of gathering they often had during the warmer months, with laughter and conversations filling the backyard. Ethan was on edge, barely able to focus on the people around him, each look from Lucas setting his heart racing. But it wasn't excitement anymore. It was fear. Fear that someone would see through the facade and put the pieces together. Lucas, however, remained entirely at ease, laughing and joking with the other guests, as if nothing was wrong. As the night wore on, Ethan's emotions churned within him, reaching a fever pitch as he found himself alone with Lucas in the backyard. The air was thick with tension, unspoken words hovering between them. Lucas gave him a casual smile, his demeanor as carefree as ever, and commented on how quiet Ethan had been that evening. Ethan, unable to voice the chaos inside him, lied, saying he was just tired. But Lucas's response was unexpected, a light-hearted suggestion that they could take some time apart if Ethan needed it. The suggestion hit Ethan like a physical blow. The thought of being without Lucas, of going back to his life without the one thing that had brought him excitement, was unbearable. He felt trapped, caught between his fear of losing Lucas and the reality of what their relationship had cost him. Each time he tried to walk away, he was pulled back by the magnetic pull Lucas had over him, a pull that was both intoxicating and torturous. Days after that fateful night, Ethan's life spiraled out of control. He became consumed by his need for Lucas, his obsession growing with each passing day. He barely slept, each restless night plagued by thoughts of their encounters, his every waking moment clouded by the ache of wanting what he couldn't have. At work, his colleagues noticed his erratic behavior, whispering behind his back about the once reliable agent who had become distant and distracted. Claire, too, began to notice the changes in him. The once attentive husband was now withdrawn, barely speaking to her, his mind always elsewhere. Claire's intuition told her that something was wrong, something deeper than the typical pressures of life. She observed the way Ethan would stiffen when Lucas's name was mentioned, how he would leave the room whenever Lucas's visits were brought up in conversation. She could feel him slipping away from her, a distance she couldn't bridge no matter how hard she tried. Each attempt to confront him ended in silence, Ethan retreating further into himself, the guilt too heavy to let him face her honestly. As Ethan's obsession grew, so did his paranoia. The slightest hint of suspicion from Claire or anyone else sent him spiraling into anxiety. He knew that if the truth ever came out, it would destroy everything: his marriage, his career, his reputation. But no matter how hard he tried to distance himself, he couldn't escape the pull of his emotions, the twisted need for Lucas that had taken over his life. Every time he reached out, Lucas became colder, more dismissive, brushing him off with vague promises to talk later, sending Ethan to the edge of madness. One night, driven by desperation, Ethan found himself outside Lucas's apartment, unable to resist the need to confront him. When Lucas finally opened the door, His irritation was clear, and Ethan felt the sting of rejection cut deeper than ever. He pleaded with Lucas, his voice barely a whisper, as he tried to explain his torment, but Lucas remained unmoved. In his eyes, it had always been just an affair, something to pass the time, but to Ethan, it had become his world. In the days that followed, Ethan's obsession morphed into desperation. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think of anything but Lucas. Each time he reached out, he was met with cold indifference, driving him to the brink. Claire, witnessing the change in her husband, grew more concerned, her worry deepening into fear. When she finally confronted him, demanding to know the truth, Ethan could only stammer out weak excuses, unable to bear the thought of shattering her heart with the truth. The silence between them became a suffocating presence, a wall that kept them apart. One evening, Claire's suspicions became too much to ignore. She confronted Ethan, her voice trembling as she asked if there was someone else. The question hung in the air, a moment of truth that could no longer be avoided. Ethan's heart pounded, guilt clawing at him, and in that moment, he realized there was no escape from the consequences of his choices. His double life had finally caught up to him, leaving him with no path forward that wouldn't lead to destruction. As Ethan stood in the dimly lit room, staring at Claire's tear-filled eyes, he felt the full weight of his decisions come crashing down. His love for Lucas, his betrayal of Claire, the lies and deception, all of it was laid bare before him. There was no hiding anymore, no excuses to make. Ethan Harper, the man Maplewood once respected, had been undone by his own desires, his own choices, and as he watched his world crumble around him, he realized that the secret he had fought so hard to protect had become the very thing that would destroy him. In the weeks that followed, the truth came out, leaving Maplewood in shock. Friends and neighbors could hardly believe that Ethan, the trusted real estate agent, the devoted husband, had lived a life built on deception. The affair, the lies, the heartbreak, it all became the talk of the town, a scandal that no one could have predicted. Maplewood would never be the same, its quiet streets forever haunted by the shadows of betrayal and obsession, a tragic reminder of the dark secrets hidden beneath its seemingly perfect surface. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out our other videos for more captivating stories. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.